magazine in a way. This morning on the news, and I put it on the Daily Drift, and if you're not going to the Daily Drift, you should be, www.thedailydrift.com. It's the news site, a news aggregate that I put together for you. It's the links to all the news you need to know, but you don't get it at the mainstream media. So make sure you're going to thedailydrift.com. I go through a lot of effort to put that out there for you every day, and use that, spread it around on your social media now. If you're not on social media, get so. I'm on Facebook. I don't use it as much anymore. Joe, you're still a Facebook guy.
On occasion.
And Pat, you're still a Facebook guy.
I am, yes.
Are either one of you on Twitter?
I dabble in it a little bit, but I just don't have enough.
It takes time.
I just don't have enough to do it all.
It does. I prefer the Twitter. I almost said the Twitter. Doesn't that make me an old man? I'm on the Twitter now.
Twitters.
But I like dealing with my tweets on Twitter. So, but it's kind of nice because you can get immediate feedback that you don't always get from Facebook. Facebook, I may Facebook something to you and it'll be a day or whatever. Twitter, you're getting instantaneous because somebody's watching. You're in their feed and they're responding to you immediately, which is why I like Twitter. But Twitter and Facebook both have that issue of some shenanigans going on because Mark Zuckerberg, who is uber liberal, is now kind of twisting things and twisting data on Facebook to help the liberals. He tried very much to try and get Hillary elected. And Jack Dorsey, who owns Twitter, he's actually a minority owner now. Guess who bought most of Twitter up?
Do tell.
Saudi Arabia. Okay, so once again, you're dealing with an issue of people behind the scenes who have motives that may not be the best for us here in the United States. And so both those are kind of getting twisted and manipulated and biased. And so I recently switched over to was Gab, Gab.ai.
Yeah, you've been talking about that a lot.
And Gab is really phenomenal because there is no filtering, there is no funny monkey business. What's trending is what's trending truthfully. So when you get onto Gab, beware, put your big boy pants on because Gab will have some things that you don't like and you may not agree with. But if you want to close your bubble up, you can self-censor. You can filter those people out if you don't want them or their ideas, and that's what's nice about Gab. So there is no censoring other than censoring yourself. So that's really nice about Gab. But it's become one of these things where people can get into whatever. So you may see the fake news that the mainstream media has put out there. Now they tried blaming the Russians and Bernie and everybody else for Hillary's loss. And now the most recent thing after this Russian escapade is the fake news.
Right.
And let's face it, when it comes to fake news, the mainstream medias are the biggest purveyors of fake news, right? Talking about Hillary and her being in Bosnia under fire, that's fake news, and yet they were all about it when it happened.
Absolutely.
Nobody held her accountable for that. So fake news is all over the place. But let us decide that. That's up to you. There's no excuse for a human being who has complete access to the internet not to double check your sources.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you just, I just, while you were talking, just quickly Googled something here. The Daily Dot, which got a report from Zimdars, has a list of 58 fake news sites that purvey on Facebook. Yeah. Now, whether they're all fake or not, that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
But here's the data.
Yeah.
Do your homework and determine which is the right source of information
so
for you.
That website is telling that these are fake websites. Name some of those off so we can hear them, and then we can double check ourselves.
AmericanNews.com, Politicalo, Activist. It even has Bipartisan Report. It even has on here Breitbart.
Yeah.
So you've got to be you've got to do your homework, right?
Yeah.
Because again, just like fake news, the lists have to be checked. Trust and verify, as our friend Ronald Reagan used to say.
Yes.
Right? So all these things are just opportunities for you to do your research and make sure that what you're reading and what is leading you, your thoughts, is something that you can trust.
But I mean, in America, you have true investigative journalists, professional investigative journalists. And some of them may have a liberal slant, and some of them may have a conservative slant. But these are people who are doing their homework, and they're subject to review by their editor, okay? And they're going to have some facts that you could probably believe in. You got to figure out who those people are, right? Versus the people who are sitting at home and typing up controversial things, complete fiction. And you've got to learn how to filter that out.
Yeah, and you have to look at it because even the mainstream media is doing that same thing. They're putting out, people in the New York Times. So when you're going to label if you're going to label Breitbart fake news, then you certainly have to label the New York Times fake news because they've probably been wrong far more often than Breitbart has been. So it is up to you to take a look at it. What I don't like is the fact that Facebook is now moving to that point where they're going to set up Snopes and 3 or 4 other sites as the purveyors of what is and what is not fake news. And Snopes itself is a liberal site. It's funded by liberals, and they've been proven to be a liberal site with their own bias. So for Zuckerberg to do that, I'm not sure is the smartest move on his part. I think it's going to drive people away. I've been getting driven away slowly but surely. I don't do a whole lot on Facebook anymore.
He's protecting his money. Let's be crystal clear here. So he's going to do whatever he can do to save face in light of all this fake news that came out in the election period. You're going to come up with lists like these. These lists are going to be slanted also, right? Depending on who gives you the list, they're going to be liberal based, they're going to be right wing based. It depends on the whole dynamic. So as a person that wants to get informed, you've got to see all the information and you've got to take it with a grain of salt into what your morals are and what you believe in, because you're going to get all the information you want. It's what's relevant, what's real, what isn't.
But Gary, I'd like a comment from you on something.
Sure.
Okay, if you look at all the news that's out there, does Donald Trump? He's won the election, so he's no longer trying to win voters anymore. The media may have an influence on his popularity vote. Does he care? Does he care? Can he do his policies and implement his policies in spite of whatever the media writes? Can he just ignore them?
I think he is going to ignore the media because I think he's gone beyond the media, and I think that's why you're hearing Reince Priebus say, we're going to rethink the press corps. It's not going to be just the same old press corps. They're going to do it a little differently, and you may see CNN not get a spot in the press corps because they've been so jaded and they've been so brutal to him. And you know what? CNN is as guilty as anybody of fake news. You can pull all kinds of stuff up.
Yeah.
And so I think when they say, is he going to keep his Twitter account? I think he should keep his Twitter account. Okay. Because you know what? He can go directly to you and I and Pat and anyone else who has an account, get it out there. And even if you don't have Twitter, it's going to make the news.
But with that comes responsibility. And, and here's an area where I would be somewhat critical of Mr. Trump. You can, in 2012, make a tweet suggesting that the Electoral College is not a good thing, and then come out 4 years later and say it's a great thing. People are allowed to change their opinions. I have no trouble with that. But the Electoral College didn't change during those 4 years.
No.
So where, the first tweet that went out that was critical of it, had he done his homework before sending such a tweet?
Obviously not. No, he wouldn't have done his homework.
And to the point is valid, and to think that he's going to somehow change his stripes completely, to me is ludicrous. Will he move? Will he be better? Yeah, but let's be clear about who he's assigning. Do you think Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Secretary, is going to care about what the media says? Absolutely not. So the people that he's putting around, if people are going to be asking for policy and making policy changes and telling Donald Trump what's best for that department, those people are going to be ready to roll, and they're not going to be tweeting at 3 a.m. Donald probably will, and I think he'll get better, but at the end of the day, what I'm focused on personally right now is who he's putting around him. And these are business people and a spattering of your normal political folks, Reince Priebus, etc. But I really like the genesis of what this foundation is, because it's a mix.
Yeah. And there is some politicos in there. I mean, I think taking Reince Priebus, granted he's an insider, he's the establishment, whatever you wanted to call him, but as they said, he's a day-to-day manager. He's the guy. So, and you have to pull that together. You have to pull some of those establishment Republicans in. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Donald Trump is, I guess, Joe, what I'm kind of thinking is, at this point, it's not a money issue for Trump, right? Never was. If money was all he cared about, he sure as hell would not have run for president of the United States, because this has done nothing but cost him money. Money that he spent and lost business wages and whatever else he's lost. I think at this point, and this is what makes me very happy, he's got skin in the game. He now has to prove to the American people, I'm going to do what you told me. These are my deliverables. And I'm going to surround myself with the proper people to, A, get the economy stoking by deregulating what we need to deregulate, by changing the tax code to get money to come back here. And I think that's going to happen. That I think is probably the hugest thing. If you can get the corporate tax rate, down to 15%, we'll be the lowest in the world again, right?
Incredible amount of wealth that you're going to generate in this country.
And do whatever it takes to get those companies to bring the money back here. Give them a break, whatever, one-time amnesty on bringing that money back.
Right.
And let's start building some manufacturing and get some people back to work.
Look, what Trump understands is that if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's the difference between him, just at 30,000 feet, the difference between him and the last president is that President Obama wants to be the smartest man in the room. Obama wants to put his spin on it. He wants to sign his executive orders. He wants to do it himself. And that's the difference between him and Trump. So the people that he puts around him are going to be absolutely critical to what happens going forward. And we're going to have to deal with some fallout, Joe, of Twitters. Because he's going to send them, and they're going to be moronic at times, and sometimes they're going to be sub-moronic. But that's him, and that's why he's here.
And as we were saying before the show, at age 51, which I am now, I'm looking forward to 4 to 8 years of the greatest economy imaginable. These are my final big money-making years, hopefully. Right. And, I'm all in.
Yeah, I'm feeling more optimistic now than I've probably felt in 30 years. And just looking, I think the country's feeling that way because according to the last poll, the American public's opinion is growing by leaps and bounds. And even though some people may say, oh, he's surrounding himself with billionaire business people. Well, that may be, but you know what? Don't you want smart people who know how to make money in charge of running the economy?
Absolutely.
That's what you don't put poor people in charge of an economy because you know what? Poor people don't know how to make money. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is.
They don't. And we've got to get the right people around them. And I mean, you don't think that our Secretary of State in waiting can have a meaningful policy conversation with Russia?
Yeah. Well, let's get into
They've got as much to lose. Russia has as much to lose by a guy like that coming into the parlor and having a conversation than they have to win.
Yeah.
So to me, it was a perfect fit because those countries that we trade with, those countries that maybe we were scoffed at here in the last 8 years, they have to recognize what Tillerson's going to bring to the party now. I think that's a complete difference than sitting around and getting crumpets and tea and having the same conversation about talking at each other instead of talking to each other.
Right. Yeah, and let's find out how you guys feel about Russia because, when I look at the media and I look at the liberals and I even look at some of the progressive Republicans, they're all making the Russian boogeyman. Vladimir Putin's a boogeyman. He's a murdering thug, blah, blah, blah. That may be the fact. He was a KGB agent for years, right? Yeah. And you don't just erase that part of a man's, he's conniving, he's smart, he's dangerous. Yes, he is. But I'd rather work with him in some kind of a Northern European alliance. And let's face it, I don't think Russia would ever want a nuclear war because Absolutely. You know what happens if nuclear bombs fall on the United States, North America? It blows with the westerly winds over to Europe and into Russia. So there's no way the Russians would want a nuclear war with us. It's just not going to happen.
No, it's not. But
That's madness. That doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. But what is compelling is that, Putin thinks right now that he's got a superior military position over everybody, including the United States. He sees these mothballed planes. He sees these jets and sitting there, these old planes and old technology. So does Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is saying we're gonna revolutionize our military. And he had Lockheed and Boeing both yesterday
Yep.
in his Trump Tower estate.